Hey guys, I noticed that I was tagged in a few Reddit posts this weekend about John Meadows' training program and my thoughts on them. So I wanted to take just a couple minutes to explain what I like about John's programs, what I think could be better, and how I think you can take any one of his programs and make it much, much more effectively with just one small change. So first of all, I like a lot of what John does with his programming. I really like his thoughts on exercise sequencing. I like his thoughts on exercise selection. I like the emphasis that he places on effort. What I don't like is his approach to progression. I think that it's too haphazard, and for the vast majority of trainees, it's not going to result in the type of progressive overload that's necessary for growth unless they're at the very, very advanced levels. So, first of all, I want to explain why that is. If you've looked at any of John's programs, they tend to vary quite a bit from week to week. He'll swap exercises in and out. He'll rearrange the order of exercises. He'll change the number of sets, reps, the number of intensifying movements. He'll do all these different sorts of strategies, and those make the programs more fun. They make them more mentally engaging, but I think that they are applied in a way that makes progression more difficult to track. If you think back to the last video, I noted that there are a lot of different ways that you can end up adding weight to the bar that aren't necessarily going to be reflected in terms of muscle growth, right? So for example, if you're doing a new movement and you do that new movement 2 weeks in a row, you're gonna be a lot better at that movement the second week. That's not necessarily because you've gotten a lot stronger. It's likely because you've just gotten more familiar with the movement pattern itself, right? That's not really progression. And so if you're following a program that's constantly changing movements, you don't ever really know, did I get stronger on this movement or did I really just get better at performing it? Even if you come back to the same movement at the end of a training program that you used at the beginning, you can't really compare those numbers unless it's a movement that you're already very, very familiar with, right? So for example, I'm very familiar with my squatting movement pattern, my deadlifting movement pattern. If I test a 1 rep max deadlift at the beginning of a mesocycle, and then I spend the rest of the mesocycle training, let's say a trap bar deadlift, and I come back to my deadlift at the end of that mesocycle and my 1 rep max went up, I can pretty safely say, hey, this trap bar deadlift helped me because I don't have that much room to improve my deadlift technique. In contrast, if it were to be some, very strange variation of a deadlift that I had never performed before, right? Let's say it's a snatch grip deficit deadlift versus bands, and I got better at it at the end of the mesocycle, it might just be because, hey, look, I tried this deadlift before and I kind of remember the way it was supposed to be. So that goes for any movement, really. And as a result, I think that whenever you're designing a training program, each mesocycle needs to be consistent throughout. So that's what I don't like about John's programs. So how do you fix that? Very, very, very simple. You take any one of the programs, you start on week 1, you repeat week 1 until you stop progressing, right? Until you can't add weight to the bar, just repeating week 1 over and over and over again. Then you go to week 2. Because the progressions that John adds do work, they're just applied too rapidly. And so you're gonna find this is somewhat self-regulating, What's gonna happen is you're gonna do week 1 and you can probably ride week 1 out for 3 or 4 weeks. And then you're gonna stall out a little bit, maybe even longer. Then you're gonna stall out a little bit, you'll go to week 2. Week 2, you'll probably only last 2 or 3 weeks before you have to move on to week 3. That's because most of the movements are gonna be the same, right? And then weeks 3 and 4 and 5, by the time you get to the end of the program, you probably are going week to week. But that's okay, because you've had that time to adjust to all the different training methods and all the different training movements that John has incorporated throughout the entire program. You've just given yourself sufficient time to do so. That's really the only change I think you need to make those programs much, much more effective. Now, I do have to say, I think you are honestly better off with a Renaissance periodization program if you're looking for something that is strictly out of the box. And the reason for that is, first of all, I'm of the philosophy that simpler is better. Second of all, I believe that for the majority of trainees, which means the ones that are the beginner, intermediate, even early advanced levels, higher frequency is better. And the Renaissance periodization programs tend to have higher frequency than most other programs. And third of all, because I do believe that practicing straight sets, engaging the number of reps that you have in reserve, those sorts of things, those sorts of strategies that RP tends to rely on more. I think those are very beneficial to set you up for success both in the short term and the long term with respect to your training career. And I think that if you jump into one of John's programs, which might be highly effective for somebody who's already more or less maxed out their strength potential, if you haven't maxed yours out, you're probably selling yourself just a little bit short. All of that said, John's programs are a lot of fun. And if you think his programs are fun, you get a fucking blast out of running them. That says a lot. And that probably is a valid reason for running his program over anybody else's. The more you enjoy your training, the more effort you're going to put into it, and the more results you're going to see. That, in my opinion, is maybe the most important part of setting up a training program. So I hope this video helped you a little bit. I think it was pretty clear. I'm not always the most well-spoken person, but this is a simple concept, and hopefully you understood it. But if you do have any questions on that, please let me know. One of the questions I get a whole lot is, which of John's programs do I like the best? I do think the Unity one that he wrote with Dave Tate is superb. I think it could have some minor changes, and you can go back and find my YouTube review for what changes I suggest. The Project Colossus, which is his lower volume one, I really like that as well. And I think that if you get that, and I believe Odin Force is the follow-up, which is a higher volume run, I think you could probably run those back-to-back in the style that I just explained for quite a long time and have a lot of benefit from it. So, all of his programs are more or less, similar in terms of how they're set up. So really what I would suggest is going to his website, looking through the little program comparison chart he has, and that should really tell you all you need to know, because there's not going to be massive differences between or among most of them. So any other questions, just leave them in the comments below. I hope you found this video helpful, and I will return to the Unfuck Your Bodybuilding series shortly. I've got some cool opportunities with some new sponsors that are going to help to make that series even better, higher quality, and hopefully reach a bigger audience. So I'm really excited about that. Hope you guys are too. And I will talk to you soon.